Hey, sweet peas, I'm sorry I skipped yesterday. Woo! Yesterday was a day. It was a day. Oh, no. And I've lost my bookmark out of here. Let's see. Let's see, we did the day of games. Day of games. So I think we're on the chapter called The Third Day, which is extremely short. So I'll try to read 2 chapters. The third day, all night the house shook and jarred in the wind. I'm going to lean back. Next day, the storm was worse than ever. The noises of the wind were more terrible, and snow struck the windows with an icy rattle. Ma made ready to go to the stable. Eat your breakfast, girls, and be careful with the fire, she said. Then she was gone into the storm. After a long time she came back, and another day began. It was a long, dark day. They huddled close to the stove, and the cold pressed against their backs. Carrie was fretful, and Ma's smile was tired. There's my bookmark. Ma was tired. Ma was tired. My smile was tired. Laura and Mary studied hard, but they turned a page. Did not know their lessons very well. The hands of the clock moved so slowly that they seemed not to move at all. What about the color of this? I'm trying to cut my lights. Oh well. Hands didn't seem to move at all. At last the gray light faded and night was there again. The lamplight shone on the board walls and the white frosted windows. If Pa had been there, he would have played the fiddle, and they would have all been cozy and happy. Come, come, I said, we mustn't sit like this. Would you like to play cat's cradle? Jack had left his supper untouched. He sighed mournfully in the corner. Mary and Laura looked at each other, and then Laura said, No, thank you, Ma. We want to go to bed. She cuddled her back tight against Mary's back in the icy cold bed. The storm was shaking the house. It creaked and shuddered all over. Rattling snow scoured the roof. Laura's head was tucked well under the covers, but the sounds in the storm were worse than wolves. Cold tears ran down her cheeks. Bless her heart. The fourth day, in the morning, those sounds were gone from the wind. It was blowing with a steady, wailing scream, and the house stood still, but the roaring fire in the stove gave hardly any heat. The cold is worse, Ma said. Don't try to do the housework properly. Wrap up in your shawls and keep Carrie with you close to the stove. Soon after Ma came from the stable, the frost on the eastern window glowed faintly yellow. Laura ran to breathe on it and scratch away the ice until she made a peephole. Outdoors the sun was shining. Ooh! Ma looked out, then Mary and Laura took turns looking out at the snow blowing in waves over the ground. The sky looked like ice. Even the air looked cold above that fast-blowing flood of snow, and the sunshine that came through the peephole was no warmer than a shadow. Sidewise from the peephole, Laura glimpsed something dark. A furry big animal was wading deep in the blowing snow. A bear, she thought. It shambled behind the corner of the house and darkened the front window. I'm thinking it's Pa, don't you? Ma, she cried. The door opened. The snowy, furry animal came in. Pa's eyes looked out of its face. Pa's voice said, Have you been good girls while I was gone? Ma ran to him. Laura and Mary and Carrie ran, crying and laughing. Ma helped him out of his coat. The fur was full of snow that showered on the floor. Pa let the coat drop, too. Charles, you're frozen, Ma said. Just about, said Pa, and I'm hungry as a wolf. Let me sit down by the fire, Caroline, and feed me. His face was thin and his eyes large. He sat shivering close to the oven and said he was only cold, not frostbitten. Ma quickly warmed some of the bean broth and gave it to him. "That's good," he said. "That warms a fella." Ma pulled off his boots and he put his feet up to the heat from the oven. "Charles," Ma asked, were you?" She stood smiling with her mouth trembling. "Now, Caroline, don't you ever worry about me," said Pa. "I'm bound to come home to take care of you and the girls." He lifted Carrie to his knee and put an arm around Laura and the other around Mary. "What did you think, Mary?" "I thought you would come," Mary answered. "That's the girl. And you, Laura?" "I didn't think you were with Mr. Fitch telling stories," said Laura. I kept wishing hard." "There you are, Caroline. How could a fella fail to get home?" Pa asked Ma. "Give me some more of that broth, and I'll tell you all about it." They waited while he rested and ate bean broth with bread and drank hot tea. His hair and his beard were wet with snow melting in them. Ma dried them with a towel. He took her hand and drew her down beside him and asked, "Caroline, do you know what this weather means?" "It means we'll have a bumper crop of wheat next year." "Does it, Charles?" said Ma. "We won't have any grasshoppers next summer. They say in town that grasshoppers only come only when the summers are hot and dry and the winters are mild. We're getting so much snow now that we're bound to have some fine crops next year." "Oh, got a dry mouth and forgot my drink." Let's see. "That's good," Charles Ma said quietly. "Well, they were talking about all this in the store, but I knew I ought to start home. Just as I was leaving, Fitch showed me the buffalo coat. He got it cheap from a man who went east on the last train running and had to have money to buy his ticket. Fitch and I said I could have the coat for $10. $10 is a lot of money, but I'm glad you got the coat, Charles," said Ma. "As it turned out, it's lucky I did, though I didn't know it then. But going to town, the wind went right through me. It was cold enough to freeze the nose off a brass monkey. It seemed like my old coat didn't even strain that wind. So when Fitch told me to pay him when I sell my trapped furs next spring, I put that buffalo coat on over my old one. As soon as I was out on the prairie, I saw the cloud in the northwest, but it was so small and far away, I thought I could beat it home. Pretty soon I began to run, but I was no more than halfway when the storm struck me. I couldn't see my hand before my face. It would be all right if these blizzard winds didn't come from all directions at once. I don't know how they do it. When a storm comes from the northwest, a man ought to be able to go straight north by keeping the wind on his left cheek, but a fella can't do anything like that in a blizzard. Still, it seemed I ought to be able to walk straight ahead even if I couldn't see or tell directions. So I kept on walking straight ahead, I thought, till I knew I was lost. I had come 2 miles without getting to the creek, and I had no idea which way to turn. The only thing to do was keep on going. I had to walk till the storm quit. If I stopped, I'd freeze. So I set myself to outwalk the storm. I walked and walked. I could not see any more than if I'd been stone blind. I could hear nothing but the wind. I kept on walking in that white blur. I don't know if you noticed, there seemed to be voices howling and things screaming overhead in a blizzard. "Yes, Pa, I heard them," Mary said. "So did I," said Mary, and Ma nodded. "And balls of fire," said Laura. "Balls of fire?" Pa asked. "That will keep, Laura," said Ma. "Go on, Charles. What did you do?" "I kept on walking," Pa answered. "I walked till the white blur turned gray and then black, and I knew it was night. I figured I'd been walking 4 hours, and these blizzards last 3 days and nights, but I kept on walking." Pa stopped, and Ma said, "I had the lamp burning in the window for you. I didn't see it, said Pa. I kept straining my eyes to see something, but all I saw was the dark. Then, of a sudden, everything gave way under me, and I went straight down. Must have been 10 feet. It seemed farther. I had no idea what happened or where I was, but I was out of the wind. The blizzard was yelling and shrieking overhead, but the air was fairly still where I was. I felt around me. There was snow banked up as high as I could reach on 3 sides of me, and the other side was kind of a wall of bare ground, sloping back at the bottom. It didn't take me long to figure that I'd walked off the bank of some gully somewhere on the prairie. I crawled back under the bank, and there I was with solid ground at my back and overhead, snug as a bear in a den. I didn't believe I would freeze there out of the wind and with the buffalo coat to keep me warm in my body. So I curled up in it and went to sleep, being pretty tired. I was glad I had that coat and a good warm cap with ear flaps and an extra pair of thick socks, Caroline. When I woke up, I could hear the blizzard, but faintly. There was a solid snow in front of me, coated over with ice where my beard had melted it. The blizzard had filled up the hole I had made when I fell. There must have been 6 feet of snow over me, but the air was good. I moved my arms and legs and fingers and toes and felt my nose and ears to make sure I wasn't freezing. I could still hear the storm, so I went to sleep again. How long has it been, Caroline? 3 days and nights, said Ma. This is the 4th day. Then Pa asked Mary and Laura, do you know what day this is? Is it Sunday? Mary guessed. It's the day before Christmas, said Ma. Laura and Mary had forgotten all about Christmas. Laura asked, did you sleep all that time, Pa? No, said Pa. I kept on sleeping and waking up hungry, sleeping some more till I woke up just about starved. I was bringing home some oyster crackers for Christmas. They were in a pocket of the buffalo coat. I took a handful of those crackers out of the paper bag and ate them. I felt out in the snow and took a handful, and I ate that for a drink. So, melted snow for water. Then all I could do was lie there and wait for the storm to stop. I tell you, Caroline, it was mighty hard to do that, thinking of you and the girls and knowing you would go out in the blizzard to do the chores. But I knew I could not get home till the blizzard stopped. So I waited a long time till I was so hungry again that I ate all the rest of the oyster crackers. They were no bigger than the end of my thumb. One of them wasn't half a mouthful. And there's Pa in his little hole. And I'm sorry, guys, but my mouth is so dry. We're not to the end of it, that chapter, but there's only a couple more pages. Golly, I wish I'd have brought my drink in here. My knee is still so stiff and leg hurting, so I got it up in the chair. But we've only got to finish that chapter, and the next chapter is Christmas Eve, and we're all done. And again, I'm sorry to say that that's all I'll be reading of that series, but I hope you guys will finish it up and read the other books. And I'll still be reading Joe's Boys. Not sure, I need to check to see how many more chapters there are there, but probably still quite a few. When I finish that, I'll check the community page and see how the votes look and whether it's Wuthering, not Withering Heights. That was a mistake that it wouldn't let me edit, or whatever else the other one was. Was it Pride and Prejudice? Maybe. Okay, talk to you later. Love you. Mwah. Be sweet. Don't be ugly. Have a happy Tuesday. I won't be live today. We'll be live tomorrow again at 5. Bye-bye.